Men judge more with their eyes than with their hands, yet it is with the tongue that rulers lose kingdoms and common men lose respect. Tell me, have you ever spoken a word you wish you could unspeak, a secret too soon revealed, an anger unleashed, a promise broken by your own lips? Today, I shall unveil for you 10 situations where your own mouth betrays you, and how, if you heed my counsel, you may yet guard your power, your reputation, and even your survival. Imagine, for a moment, that you hold in your mouth both a key and a dagger. A key that can open doors to power, influence, trust, even love. And a dagger, sharp and merciless, that can wound your reputation, bleed your alliances, and strike your own ambitions down before your enemies ever need to move against you. This is the tongue, the most dangerous weapon a man carries, and unlike the sword or the spear, it needs no training to kill. It betrays its owner more swiftly than any traitor could. Throughout history, empires have risen and fallen not only on the battlefield, but in the chamber, the court, the hall where words are exchanged. Consider the general who, intoxicated by his own victories, boasts too freely before his soldiers, planting seeds of arrogance that later become weeds of complacency. Consider the courtier who, eager to flatter his master, lets slip one false word too many, and suddenly finds suspicion where once there was trust. A ruler, a soldier, a lover, even the humble merchant, each is undone not by his hand, but by his tongue. For men judge what they hear as much as what they see, and once a word escapes, it cannot be recalled. What makes the tongue so dangerous is not only its ability to harm others, but its tendency to betray the speaker himself. A man can conceal his intentions with silence, cloak his weakness with calm, and hide his ignorance by simply withholding speech. But the moment he speaks recklessly, the mask falls. His true nature is revealed. A fool believes he is clever when he speaks without pause, but the wise man listens, measures, waits. For in the economy of power, silence accrues wealth, while chatter spends it recklessly. Think of this: when a prince speaks with careful restraint, every word he utters carries the weight of law, of destiny, of authority. Men lean in, hungry for the sound. But when the same prince lets his tongue run wild when he speaks of every thought, every fear, every desire, his subjects begin to see him not as a master of men, but as a man mastered by his own impulses. He has surrendered the mystery that commands respect. He has given away the very aura that separates ruler from ruled, and it is not only rulers who suffer. In every walk of life, the careless tongue turns allies into adversaries, friends into rivals, and opportunities into ashes. The man who jokes at the wrong time reveals his lack of discipline. The one who argues too loudly exposes his insecurity. The one who gossips betrays not only his victim, but himself, for if he betrays another's secrets, who would ever trust him with their own? Thus the mouth brands its owner long before his deeds can define him. What, then, makes the tongue so treacherous? It is swifter than thought. It leaps ahead of reason. The heart grows hot with anger, and the tongue lashes before the mind has drawn its sword. The ambition burns within, and the tongue reveals desires that should have remained hidden. Even the cleverest strategist may lay out his plans with perfect order, but in one careless conversation, he exposes them to his rival, who needs only patience to strike. The tongue betrays because it loves to move, because silence requires discipline, and discipline is rare. The great irony is that men believe words grant them power, and it is true in part. A well-placed phrase can inspire armies, seduce allies, deceive rivals. But power given by words is fragile if not wielded with mastery. The same words that elevate today can condemn tomorrow. Praise too easily spoken becomes flattery, and flattery breeds contempt. Promises too freely given become debts impossible to pay. Threats too recklessly hurled provoke resistance where silence might have preserved fear. Thus the tongue offers its master the illusion of strength while slowly stripping it away. It is here that the wise distinguish themselves from the foolish. The wise man speaks rarely, and when he does, his words carry weight not because they are many, but because they are few. Each syllable is sharpened like a blade, precise, deliberate. The fool, on the other hand, scatters his words like coins in the marketplace, cheapening them until no one values his speech. He has forgotten that the tongue is not only a weapon against others, but against himself. And so the tongue becomes a double-edged sword. With one edge, it can carve paths to influence, establish authority, and inspire loyalty. With the other, it can slice away trust, expose weakness, and unravel power in an instant. Those who master it gain the strength to move men without lifting a hand. Those who fail to restrain it discover that their greatest enemy was not the rival across the table, but the very mouth through which they spoke. There is a reason the old masters of statecraft whispered their counsel in private, behind closed doors, and seldom entrusted their thoughts to paper. Words, once freed, cannot be summoned back. Machiavelli himself warned rulers that discretion in speech is as crucial as strength in arms. A sword may cut down one enemy, but a careless word may raise an army of them. The warning is simple yet profound. Never let your tongue reveal what your heart has not yet secured. Never let your mouth promise what your hand cannot deliver. And never let your speech betray the thoughts that should remain hidden. Consider the prince in his palace, surrounded by flatterers and advisers, eager to speak his mind, to proclaim his ambitions before the court. The moment he reveals too much, the moment he utters plans not yet forged in iron, he has handed his enemies the very rope by which they will strangle him. For men listen more closely to a ruler's words than to his deeds. They twist those words, repeat them, magnify them, until whispers become storms. What began as idle speech becomes binding law in the ears of those who heard it. In this way, the tongue enslaves the master who cannot master it. Machiavelli's warning is not only for princes and rulers. It is for every man who desires to keep power, to guard influence, to rise in any arena of life. Words reveal intent. Intent invites resistance. The merchant who reveals too freely the price he is willing to accept finds himself bargaining from weakness. The soldier who boasts of his next move gives his enemy time to prepare. The lover who declares his devotion too hastily forfeits the mystery that keeps desire alive. In every domain, the same law applies. He who speaks too soon, too freely, too often, undermines his own advantage. Why is this so? Because men are not merely listeners, they are interpreters. They hear your words not as you mean them, but as they serve their own purposes. Your allies hear a promise and hold you hostage to it. Your rivals hear a weakness and exploit it. The common people hear ambition and grow fearful. In all cases, your words escape your control the moment they are spoken. They become the property of others, used against you in ways you never intended. That is the betrayal the tongue commits, and that is the danger Machiavelli warns of. There is power in ambiguity, in silence, in the art of leaving men uncertain. When a ruler speaks with restraint, men fill the gaps with their own hopes and fears. They see what they wish to see, believe what they wish to believe. Silence allows you to be everything and nothing at once, a shadow that cannot be grasped. But speech, careless and unmeasured, strips away that advantage. Once you have defined yourself with words, you cannot be undefined. Once you have revealed your plans, you cannot unreveal them. Thus, Machiavelli counsels restraint. Let men act on your silence rather than on your speech. Think also of loyalty. Men are loyal not to the chatter of their ruler, but to the power he projects. A prince who speaks too loosely risks being seen as ordinary, too human, too exposed. The mystery dissolves, the aura fades, and respect with it. It is not cruelty or generosity alone that commands obedience, but the perception that the ruler is always one step ahead, always beyond the grasp of his subjects' full understanding. Speech drags him down into the level of the common man. Silence keeps him elevated, unreachable, untouchable. This warning extends further. Beware not only of speaking too much, but of speaking in the wrong company. Machiavelli teaches that men are driven by self-interest above all. That friend who urges you to confide in him may tomorrow sell your words to a rival. That advisor who flatters your openness may tomorrow remind you of your promises when they no longer serve you. Trust is rare. rarer still when ambition is at stake. To guard your tongue is to guard your very throne, yet the temptation is great. The tongue longs to move, to assert, to defend, to impress. Many believe they secure loyalty by speaking openly, by proving honesty through words. But honesty without calculation is a weakness. The truth itself must be wielded as a weapon, not handed out like alms to the poor. Machiavelli does not despise truth, but he despises truth untamed. He despises the man who bears his soul without first considering how the exposure may wound him. The warning, then, is clear. Every word carries a price. Every word is a stone laid in the path of your destiny. Speak too many, and you build a road for your enemies to march upon. Speak too soon, and you abandon the advantage of surprise. Speak without care, and you surrender the very respect that silence would have preserved. Machiavelli saw rulers fall not because they lacked strength, but because their tongues betrayed them before their swords could save them. If the tongue is a weapon, then it betrays its master in more than one way. It is not a single wound that it inflicts, but many. Each careless word is like a small crack in stone. Alone it seems harmless, but together they bring down walls, kingdoms, and the fragile towers of trust that men spend lifetimes building. There are 10 moments when the mouth most often turns against its owner, and each one is as dangerous as the steel blade drawn by an assassin in the dark. The first betrayal comes in the heat of anger. A man who loses control of his tongue in rage does not merely wound the one he shouts at, he wounds himself. For anger makes promises he cannot keep, hurls insults he cannot withdraw, and exposes weaknesses he should have kept hidden. Those who listen do not forget the fury, and even if forgiveness is spoken, suspicion lingers. The second betrayal lies in boastful speech. To declare one's future triumphs before they are secured is to tempt both fate and enemy. Men grow envious of victories that do not yet exist. Rivals prepare their defenses before battle is even joined, and when deeds fall short of words, the boaster becomes a mockery. Silence before achievement preserves strength. Boasting before victory invites defeat. The third betrayal arises when one speaks ill of the absent. For while the words may strike the target unseen, they also strike the speaker in the eyes of those who hear. If you betray another with your tongue, all who listen will fear you, knowing it is only a matter of time before their name too is carried on your lips. Thus gossip robs a man of allies long before he realizes it. The fourth betrayal is the careless revealing of secrets. Trust, once given, is fragile, and the man who cannot guard his own words is like a chest without a lock. His allies lose confidence, his enemies gain knowledge, and his reputation shifts from reliable to reckless. Men may forgive failure in action, but they seldom forgive betrayal in speech. The fifth betrayal appears in the endless quarrel, the argument pursued for pride rather than purpose. To win with words is to lose with hearts. The man who cannot hold his tongue in dispute makes enemies of those who might have been friends, and often the victory he secures in debate costs him the support he most needs. Power is not in proving others wrong, but in bending them to your will, and the quarrelsome tongue destroys that chance. The sixth betrayal is the unnecessary confession. A man who exposes more than asked reveals his own insecurities. He opens doors for others to exploit, hands them keys to his private fears, and disarms himself before the fight begins. Restraint in confession is not deceit, it is survival. The seventh betrayal hides behind flattery. Excessive praise cheapens itself, and men learn quickly that honey on the tongue often conceals poison in the heart. The flatterer loses credibility, for his speech is too sweet to be trusted, and the moment sincerity is truly needed, no one believes him. The eighth betrayal is found in impatience, in the act of interrupting those who hold power. To cut short a superior's words is to cut at his pride, and pride once wounded seldom heals. Better to endure words one disagrees with than to betray one's own ambition through restless speech. Silence here is not submission but strategy. The ninth betrayal is the endless search for validation through words. The man who must always explain himself, who pours out justifications and begs for understanding, shows his weakness more clearly than if he had said nothing at all. Authority does not plead, power does not explain. Respect is lost not when silence is held, but when desperation drips from the tongue. And the 10th betrayal, perhaps the most dangerous, is the revelation of true desire. Once your hunger is known, you are chained by it. If men know what you crave, they can tempt you, bargain with you, trap you. To speak openly of what you want is to hand others the leash to your will. The wise conceal their desires until the moment they are ready to seize them, while the foolish betray themselves with eager words. Each of these 10 betrayals begins with the same act, the movement of the tongue. A small act, a fleeting moment, yet it carries the power to undo years of effort, years of careful planning. The tongue does not wait for enemies to strike. It strikes first, and it strikes its master before all others. If the tongue is so dangerous, if it betrays us in moments of anger, pride, or carelessness, then how can a man protect himself? Must he live in silence, never daring to speak, never daring to command? No, silence alone is not enough. To remain mute is to remove oneself from the game of power entirely. The cure lies not in silence, but in the mastery of speech itself, in learning to wield words as a weapon under your command, rather than letting them roam wild and cut at your own flesh. Machiavelli would tell you that speech must be strategic, measured, and deliberate, as precise as the blade of an assassin. Strategic speech begins with restraint. It is the art of speaking less than you know, of revealing only a fraction of what lies within your mind. When you hold back, you invite others to reveal themselves. They rush to fill the silence, exposing their own thoughts, their own weaknesses, their own desires. By saying little, you make others say much, and in their words you find opportunities. This is the first lesson. Let your speech be the trap, not the confession. But restraint is not the same as silence. There are moments when words must be spoken, when the absence of speech would be seen as weakness, arrogance, or fear. In such moments, the wise man chooses his words as a general chooses the ground upon which to fight. He does not waste them. He does not scatter them. He places them with care, each syllable carrying weight. A short phrase, delivered with confidence, can hold more authority than 100 sentences poured out in desperation. Strategic speech also demands ambiguity. To speak with absolute clarity is to give others certainty, and certainty is a gift to your rivals. When men know exactly where you stand, they can plan against you, but when your words leave space for interpretation, they create doubt. Doubt divides, it confuses, it paralyzes. One man hears promise, another hears warning, and each acts differently. In this way, a single statement can serve many purposes, each listener convinced it was meant for him. This is power not in what you say, but in what others believe you might have meant. Consider also the use of timing. Words spoken too soon are wasted, like arrows loosed before the enemy is in range. Words spoken too late fall flat, like a command issued after the soldiers have already acted. The wise man waits, watches, and then strikes with his tongue at the exact moment it will have the greatest effect. Delay creates suspense. Suspense creates power. When you finally speak, men lean in, desperate for the words they have been denied. Strategic speech also knows the value of contradiction. Not all truths must be revealed in the same form to every ear. A ruler may tell his soldiers of glory, his advisors of necessity, and his rivals of restraint, each truth shaped to the audience, each word chosen to achieve a specific effect. This is not dishonesty. It is the recognition that speech is not about expressing the self, but about moving others. The tongue is not a mirror, it is a lever, and yet, perhaps the most important cure lies in mastering silence itself. Silence is not weakness. It is a weapon sharper than speech, for it cannot be twisted, cannot be misquoted, cannot be used against you. A well-timed silence unsettles, provokes, and forces others to reveal themselves. Men fear silence because it denies them certainty. They will speak to fill the void, and in doing so, they surrender what you withheld. To know, When to hold your tongue is to command the room without ever opening your mouth. Strategic speech also requires the ability to disguise. A ruler may speak plainly when it suits him, but at other times he cloaks his intent in metaphor, in humor, in half-truths. This disguise confuses enemies, reassures allies, and keeps both from knowing his full design. For the moment you are fully known, you are vulnerable. To remain partly hidden, even in speech, is to remain untouchable. And so the cure for the betrayals of the mouth is not to abandon speech but to master it, to treat words not as casual breath but as instruments of command. Every phrase must have purpose. Every silence must be deliberate. Every statement must advance your position, conceal your weakness, or sow uncertainty in the minds of others. This is the art of strategic speech, the art that separates the ruler from the ruled, the cunning from the careless, the victor from the victim. Men rise by their actions, but they fall by their words. The tongue, when left unchecked, is the most treacherous of servants, for it whispers secrets to enemies, boasts of victories not yet won, and exposes desires that should remain hidden. Machiavelli's warning echoes across centuries. Guard your mouth as you would guard your throne. Speak with restraint, speak with calculation, and when in doubt, let silence be your ally. For silence breeds mystery, and mystery breeds power. Words should be like arrows released rarely, aimed carefully, and striking with precision. Those who master this art hold command over themselves and, in time, over others. Those who fail become prisoners of their own speech, undone not by the swords of their enemies, but by the betrayal of their own mouths.